The International Criminal Court against Child Kidnapping presents Kidnapped Hearts, a hard-hitting weekly TV show which has been created to inform the public at large about the corrupted family court system and the hideous crimes of parental child kidnapping, including the legalised child kidnapping by profit-driven, lawless judges and other corrupt government officials in the USA. Every year, 10 million children are kidnapped around the world, and most governments are unable or unwilling to solve this serious global problem that affects everyone. When left behind parents and their offspring have been mistreated by corrupt government officials, it's time to restore their human rights. We fight for left behind parents and their wrongfully retained children with international laws, treaties, and combined legal strategies. We only act in your child's best interest and make this always our top priority to restore their human rights, reunite you with your children by enforcing international laws and treaties to hold all bad actors accountable. Most family courts across America are being ran by hardcore criminals today, and the public has no clue. In our first show, we want to present to our audience our open letter to President Donald J. Trump. President Trump, parental child kidnapping is a disgraceful crime. Our plea to the President of the United States of America: please stand up for our children. 200,000 illegal immigrant children are being wrongfully retained in the USA every year by illegal immigrant parental child kidnappers and trapped in the system by lawless sanctuary city judges. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, a beacon of hope for children all over the world, hope that protects them, hope that secures their future. Question: why hasn't the US ratified it? Dear President Trump, the International Criminal Court against Child Kidnapping, ICCACK, is the court of last resort for the prosecution of the crime of parental child kidnapping, enforced disappearance of children by government officials, human rights violations, and crimes against humanity. We herewith would like to request an official meeting with you to raise this issue in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We are with conviction that you will stand by the promises you made before the elections and are of the opinion that there can be no better time for the required immigration policies to be carried out. There are more than 200,000 left behind parents left stranded every year. These parents are guiltless victims who are turned into nothing more than mere puppets in the hands of flawed legislation and lawless sanctuary city judges. The only help they have is in you, Mr. President. Your help would change the lives of 200,000 wrongfully retained children in America and the parents who are left behind, both of whom are now urging for justice, stuck in the trap of parental child kidnapping. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, CRC, is an internationally recognised agreement between 196 nations, which establishes a comprehensive set of goals for individual nations to achieve on behalf of their children. Recognising the special vulnerability of children, these goals are expressed with respect to a child's age and evolving capacities. The child's best interests are always the paramount concern. The Convention repeatedly emphasises the primacy and importance of the role, authority, and the responsibility of parents and family. It is neutral on abortion and is consistent with the principles contained in the Bill of Rights. In a wide brief, the Convention calls for freedom from violence, abuse, hazardous employment, exploitation, abduction or sale. Article 10 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, CRC, states explicitly that any applications by a child or his or her parents to enter or leave a state party for family reunification shall be dealt with by states parties in a positive, humane and expeditious manner. Article 13 of this convention assigns the inalienable right of a citizen to leave and return freely to his or her country of citizenship. Adequate nutrition. Free compulsory primary education. Adequate healthcare. Equal treatment regardless of gender, race or cultural background. The right to express opinions and freedom of thought in matters affecting them. Safe exposure, access to leisure, play, culture and art. This CRC was adopted by the General Assembly on November 20th, 1989, and has been ratified by 196 countries, including Somalia. The United Nations commended Somalia's ratification of this CRC in 2015. The move was praised as being an important step towards protecting and promoting the rights of all children in the war-torn nation, and an explicit commitment towards improving the lives of its youngest citizens, making it the most widely ratified international human rights treaty in history. As of today, only one country has yet to ratify that landmark treaty: the United States. The US signed the treaty under Bill Clinton in 1995, an agreement which was merely symbolic of the principles set forth under the treaty. But to ratify any treaty in the United States, there is the need of at least 2/3 majority vote for it in the Senate. However, several Republican senators who have claimed concerns about the US sovereignty have consistently opposed ratification. Although it was signed under the administration of President Clinton, the Senate was not moved for ratification during his term, or under George W. Bush's. Obama, at a debate on youth issues a month before the 2008 election, said, "It's embarrassing to find ourselves in the company of Somalia, a lawless land. I will review this and other treaties to ensure the United States resumes its global leadership in human rights." At the time, there were only 2 countries that hadn't ratified, because South Sudan was not yet an independent nation. President Obama has not acted, despite this campaign pledge, and has lost his opportunity to have pushed for ratification. It now seems clear that the Obama administration had not wanted to waste political capital on it. Mr. President, we also feel the need to elucidate some facts. The US is falling behind on all the children's rights indicators listed. Poverty. As of 2010, the US ranked 30th out of 34 OECD countries in terms of child poverty. 21.2% of children in the United States live in poverty. The average for OECD countries is 13.3%. Only Chile, Turkey, Mexico and Israel had higher child poverty rates. Maternal leave. The US is the only high-income country not to grant paid maternity leave. Criminal justice. The US is also the one country in the world that sentences offenders under the age of 18 to life in prison without parole, which the convention opposes. The United States had permitted the execution and life imprisonment of juvenile offenders, in contravention of Article 37 of the Convention. In 2005, a Supreme Court decision declared juvenile executions to be unconstitutional as cruel and unusual punishment in 2012. The court held that mandatory sentences of life without the possibility of parole are unconstitutional for juvenile offenders. The USA government, through its employees of lawless sanctuary city judges, is involved in crimes against humanity, including taxpayer-funded human trafficking, harbouring of illegal aliens, child kidnapping, and enforced disappearance of children by government officials. These 2 environmental factors have created obstacles in moving this CRC ahead expeditiously. Widespread misconceptions and fake news about the Convention's intent and provisions, and a lack of public understanding as to how this agreement is interpreted by the previous administration have led to the Convention encountering a notable level of opposition within the Senate and among people. Until a more favourable political environment can be achieved and greater public support can be attained, further movement on ratification has been made purposefully difficult under Obama. In the past, conservative religious organisations, including the Christian Coalition, Concerned Women for America, Eagle Forum, Family Research Council, Focus on the Family, the John Birch Society, the National Centre for Home Education, and the Rutherford Institute have spearheaded the efforts in opposition to the Convention. These democratic organisations have played a significant part in portraying the Convention as a threat. In the same style, the Democrats falsely portrayed your presidency as a threat and tried to manipulate your election at all cost, including collusion and fraud at the highest levels of the FBI and DOJ. Many of the opposition's claims stem from unfounded fake concerns related to national sovereignty, states' rights, and the parent-child relationship. The most common unfounded concerns voiced by the opposition include: the Convention usurps national and state sovereignty; The Convention undermines parental authority. The Convention would allow and encourage children to sue parents, join gangs, have abortions, and the United Nations would dictate how we raise and teach our children. These claims and perceptions are a result of misconceptions, fake news, erroneous information, and a lack of understanding about how international human rights treaties are implemented in the United States. Notably, in many cases, the Convention's opponents criticised provisions, which were added by the Reagan and Bush administrations during the drafting process to reflect the rights American children have under the US Constitution. Mr. President, the Convention contains no controlling language or mandates. Further, under the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, no treaty can override your Constitution. The United States has historically regarded treaties such as this Convention to be non-self-executing, which means a convention can only be implemented through domestic legislation enacted by Congress or state legislatures, in a manner and timeframe determined by your own legislative process. Moreover, the United States can reject or attach clarifying language to any specific provision of the Convention. Therefore, neither the United Nations nor the Committee on the Rights of the Child would have dominion, power, or enforcement authority over the United States or its citizens. Ultimately, the Convention obligates the federal government to make sure that the provisions of the treaty are fulfilled. According to Human Rights Watch, US law still exempts children as young as 12 from working in agriculture under dangerous conditions in violation of the Convention's prohibitions on the economic exploitation of children. US leaders like to say that the US is the world's leader on human rights. However, that claim is undermined by its failure to join the rest of the world in ratifying this very important convention for the protection of the rights of the child. President Trump, this is an opportunity for you to add to your legacy. Will you take up this critical issue and be the guardian for those children? 200,000 children who have been snatched away from as many parents and are being illegally detained in the United States of America right now. The cause of these inhumane atrocities are the corrupt sanctuary city judges who pass countless irrational and unjustified judgments. Judgments which lacked any sense of jurisprudence and were shrouded in sentimentality. There is the most urgent need to make them realise that the authority defends the children. Only then can the cases have just and happier outcomes. Outcomes due to which a child will not be snatched away from the desperate arms of their left behind parents. Is America the world's #1 human rights child abuser? The nation and its leaders' failure to ratify the significant UN Convention for the protection of the rights of the child is reflective of the often ill-conceived and hypocritical notions of the liberal left. The socialist liberals would rather prosecute an innocent man for crimes he didn't commit in the name of women's rights and fake child safety. This by default turns their stance into one against men's rights and perpetrating of the blatant transgression of them. Just look at the corrupted and totally rigged family court system across USA, which strategically destroys men across the country for financial gain in a $50 billion per year divorce machine. Family courts across the USA are ran by criminals today. Exhibit A2. See Sherry and Ron Palmer book, ISBN 13 978 148 952 0562. Not in the child's best interest. How divorce courts get it all wrong and how the Constitution can fix it. These courts are literally destroying America from within. They are trafficking with children, even with wrongfully retained children who are illegal immigrants in the USA. The divorce industry is a racket. Most people figure this out too late after spending tens of thousands of dollars and destroying relationships. The industry most often does what is worst for children and families and what is most profitable for them. This system is also completely unconstitutional, ignores the US Supreme Court requirements on parental rights, due process, rules of evidence, and even jailing people unlawfully to extract monies. In support of this argument, see the paper by Ron and Sherry Palmer, The Equal Rights of Parents attached as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference. See also Exhibit 2, Florida Act relating to child psychological abuse by parental alienation. 30. Harm to a child's health or welfare can occur when any person inflicts mental injury as defined in subsection 42 on a child through the use of manipulation or psychological abuse, including but not limited to parental alienation, which creates a significant developmental pathology, personality disorder pathology, or delusional psychiatric pathology as diagnosed by a mental health professional licensed under Chapter 490 or Chapter 491. The fundamental parental rights and the child's fundamental rights cannot depend on the marital status or a change in their marital status, especially when one parent has wrongfully retained the illegal immigrant child in the USA and is protected by complicit sanctuary city judges who award the child snatcher with a perverse incentive. Where divorce statuses create two unequal classes of parents or two unequal classes of children, they violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Where the divorce court asserts child custody jurisdiction solely based on a divorce between parents, the court fails the constitutional test of showing a compelling state interest that is necessary to achieve permissible state policy. These courts are trafficking illegal immigrant children who have been wrongfully retained across the state lines, which is an outright criminal violation of federal immigration laws, a blatant violation of the American Constitution and a violation of the UN CRC as well as the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. See Exhibit 3, UNCRC, and Exhibit 4, UN Human Rights Convention. Article 13. 1. Everyone has a right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. 2. Everyone has a right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. Who are these international parental child kidnappers who abuse the USA as their sanctuary for their crimes? It's worth noting, President Trump, that 2/3 of international parental abduction cases involve mothers who often allege domestic violence. Resultantly, 66% of the victims are men. It would not be far-fetched to say that non-participation in the UNCRC has led to one of the biggest cases of mass violation of men's and their wrongfully retained children's human and civil rights in the recent past across the USA. Impact on society, families and children. As a result of the harmful effects on children, parental kidnapping has been characterised as a form of child abuse and an extreme form of parental alienation. Abducted children suffer emotionally and sometimes physically at the hands of their abducting parents. Many are told the other parent is dead or has abandoned them. Uprooted from their entire life, home, family and friends, abducted children are often given new names by their abductors and instructed to hide their real names or where they used to live. Generally, the abductor avoids mentioning the victim parent and waits for time to raise difficult questions, such as, when can we see mum and dad again? These children become hostages. It is beyond their comprehension that a parent who truly cares and loves them cannot discover their whereabouts. Childhood cannot be recaptured. Abduction robs a child of their sense of history, intimacy, values, morals, self-awareness, and the opportunity of knowing one's beginnings, and the love and contact of extended family, a loss virtually no child possesses the ability to protect themselves against. What is most disturbing, that lawless sanctuary city judges across the USA become complicit in these heinous crimes by violating international laws and treaties, and giving unconstitutional orders not to return these wrongfully retained children to their left-behind parents. We are confident that you will resonate with the injustice being committed and give these children and the parental victims a solution. In the process, putting all those exploiting the law in the hands of justice. Mr. President, you made it clear during your campaign, and I quote, "We will end the sanctuary cities that have caused so many needless deaths. No more funds." So, can we count on you, Mr. President, to make America great again and protect the most vulnerable members of our society, our children? In a time of government scandals where the FBI colluded with the DOJ to criminally overthrow your election, Mr. President, who protects and enforces the human rights of the child? As Commander-in-Chief, it is your constitutional duty to uphold the law and to hold human rights violators and child abusers accountable. It is your undisputed duty to hold these perpetrators accountable. Corrupt and lawless sanctuary city judges who are destroying the lives of wrongfully retained children and use them as a pawn against the left behind parents for their financial gain cannot be tolerated under your watch. Mr. President, can you stand by and pretend not to see the evil faces of a rigged system? So this was our first open letter to President Trump. Tell us what you think on our Facebook page, facebook.com/childabductioncourt.org, or on our Twitter page @childabductionc. You can also send us your comments and feedbacks on our website, www.childabductioncourt.eu. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you next week again at our second show.